following program is brought to you by Cloudcast Media, a podcast leader in developing shows to elevate local brands, local stories, and local storytellers. Cloudcast, bringing ears and minds home.
The San Diego Union Tribune and Retirement Strategies Group present the Union Tribune Community Spotlight Show with your host, Drew Schlossberg.
I'm Drew Schlossberg of the San Diego Union Tribune, and we are pleased to have on the air a longtime friend and colleague of mine, Charles Parisi, if the name sounds familiar. Charles and his daughter, who founded Songs for Shelter, that was raising money for homeless teens and all that business. When did you first come on with that? God,
I think 2015.
God, it's been 4 years over here. And Charles, had him on when he was the vice chair of the School of Entrepreneurship and Technology, a great charter school, and he's entrepreneurial, as many of you folks have heard me say before, and he formed his own media company called Cloudcast Media, and full disclosure that the Union Tribune has moved over all of its internet radio shows, which we've been doing since 2007, over to Cloudcast, and it's been a good partnership. And Charles, always good to see you.
Great to see you, Drew. Nice to be on this side of the mic.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start a little bit here. What give a little bit of your background from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and then why did you form Cloudcast, and what can our listeners do, and what can they expect in the future?
That's I'm actually kind of glad you started there. Why did I start Cloudcast? Well, entrepreneur for literally the last 32 years. So
right.
For the audience, I'm 57. So since 25 years old, I've been an entrepreneur.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I was so excited about starting an entrepreneurship high school was I think it's wonderful skill sets to deliver to youth. But I really started Cloudcast for two reasons. One, I love the podcasting space. It's the fastest growing medium on the planet. Some very, very smart money, whether it's venture capitalists or media companies, are making major strategic moves into the podcasting space, given that we're living in the middle of this earbud generation.
Right.
So I love the space, and I love listening to podcasts, a few different ones. I tend to listen to leadership and business and different types of things and Freakonomics. So I love the space. So I'm pretty excited about it. But the other element of it, and I haven't really shared this too much with you, Drew, but I've kind of kicked off my own podcast addressing this, is I actually haven't run a company in 11 years since I sold my last company. I've been working with other startup companies, helping them get going, investing them in those companies, but I wasn't actually piloting a plane for 11 years.
Right.
And my daughter's off to college now, and I really wanted to do something again and run something again and see if, old strategies and old techniques can work in this new marketing world we live in. So, but part of the message, though, is I'm actually mathematically, as you are too, Drew,
right.
We're both in the fourth quarter of our life.
Right.
And you and I both happen to have a share of love for sports.
Right.
And I tell everyone that fourth quarter is when games are won.
That's right.
It's when championships are won. And part of my message is I don't believe in the concept of retirement. And this is the fourth quarter of my life, and it's the fourth quarter of many of our lives, but we don't always embrace that. But this is our personal championship time to do some phenomenally good work.
Agree.
And win our championship, whatever it might be. So for me, that's part of Cloudcast. I want to actually demonstrate how you start something in your fourth quarter, how you grow it. In fact, so I have a podcast that brings the audience in on every element of building this company and growing it. It's a podcast called Old Beginnings.
Nice.
So I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and listen, with your background, as you mentioned, entrepreneur, since you were 25 years old, and this is, certainly a field that has been exploding. We're very proud of the fact that we were one of the first, if not the first, to jump into it from a media standpoint. As you know, Charles, we started our internet radio shows. They were live, and they still are live for that matter, in 2007.
There's no question. You were extraordinarily well ahead of the curve. In fact, you were so far ahead of the curve, there wasn't even a curve.
There wasn't a curve. And all the credit really goes to Chris Genuine, was the former Union Tribune head of our internet business, Sign On San Diego at the time, and Ron James was the content producer. Want to give them a shout out, and if he's listening, Dave Mason, the longtime iconic, DJ radio personality in San Diego. He was our station manager back in the day. and so forth. And I know we still stay in touch with Dave on it. Here we are 12 years later, and we're quite proud of this, Charles. And, we've been doing these community spotlight shows as you know, about 2,000 plus interviews, and it's a good thing.
It's great. In fact, Drew, I don't know if you've actually thought about this, but I'd be willing to bet that you probably have more podcast episodes than probably anyone in the country.
Probably.
I don't know if you thought about that.
I have not thought about that.
But you may be in the Podcasting Hall of Fame pretty soon.
I mean, yeah, right. It would be one person in it, and it'd be mine, and that's it. And I'd probably kick myself out.
Nothing wrong with being the first one in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about sonic branding, and why is that a more authentic than visual image?
Well, this is what really, really, honestly gets me so excited about Cloudcast, because I'm a marketing guy by background. Even though I've run companies, my focus was always marketing, client acquisition, lead generation, create buzz, drive sales and revenue, and all those wonderful things you have to have in any business.
Right.
But the key for me is what's really missing in today's world is sonic branding, the power of sound, and how sound forms its own images in your brain. And funny, I tell people that I could look at a brochure and see beautiful visuals, or I could look at a website and look at beautiful visuals. But it's not authentic because the brand created it. But if I listen to a story about the brand, I'm creating my own visual images, because as I'm listening, I'm creating visuals. One of our friends calls it the theater of the mind.
Right.
And so you're creating visuals that are authentically yours and personally yours, and then the retrieval process is uniquely yours. So sonic branding is really powerful. In fact, I'm going to share with you, because I know you love to bring authors onto the show.
Going to have these folks on coming in right after you.
So literally just this weekend, when I was reading the New York Times book review, a new book came out called The Lost Art of Scripture. And so I'm not going to be delving too deeply into scriptures here, but I want to read this one little passage from the review, because it's powerful and it makes the point we're always making about sonic branding. Companies are doing great visual work, but the visuals can trick a customer. Sonic is uniquely theirs. And interesting, so this book's talking about, sometimes we get confused about reading scripture, whether it's the Bible, the Quran, or whatever it might be, and how literal it might be. And she's explaining the difference and how we can't take everything literally. So listen to this one segment. Our English, and this is from a book called The Lost Art of Scripture, Karen Armstrong. I'd love that. It would be great to get her on the show.
Sure.
Our English word scripture implies a written text, but most scriptures began as texts that were composed and transmitted orally, she writes. Indeed, in some traditions, the sound of the inspired words would always be more important than their semantic meaning. Scripture was usually sung, chanted, or declaimed in a way that separated it from mundane speech, so that words, a product of the brain's left hemisphere, were fused with the more indefinable emotions of the right. So when we read scripture or read anything, if it wasn't the context in which those words were originally delivered before the written word existed, before literacy happened, you can't really fully understand. And that's the power of sonic, what it delivers.
No, it makes sense in all the sense in the world. We're chatting with Charles Parisi. He's the founder and CEO of Cloudcast Media. I'm Drew Schlossberg of the San Diego Union Tribune. And, of course, if that Cloudcast Media sounds familiar, it is the group that goes ahead and broadcasts the Union Tribune radio shows from our Tuesday military show, supporting our San Diego military with SDMAC, our UT Prep Sports report on Tuesdays to the community spotlight shows. And been a great relationship, and looking forward to continuing it to grow in the future. One of the things that I've always been impressed with your entrepreneurial spirit, and but it's in your DNA, of course. It's that always thinking. Let's take, and we all know this. Sport's a great sports analogy. You take those defeats and turn them into victories. There's always a victory and a defeat. Somewhere down the road, you're always going to learn stuff. Talk about Cloudcast 180. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Powerful people, powerful stories, 180 seconds. So we've created this, I don't want to call it an advertising because it isn't, but it's a 3-minute
story,
fast-paced story with social enterprises, nonprofits, even though I don't personally use that terminology a lot.
Right.
because I don't think it's bold enough for what they do. But it's a 3-minute fast-paced interview that we're recording with CEOs and social enterprise leaders and business leaders in San Diego to help tell their story in an engaging way, a sonic way, digital content to get their message across. And we do it free of charge for companies and leaders here in the community, and we run them in the rotation on some of the shows. But we're really excited about it because it's funny, too. It's almost like a pitch. You've got to get your story down in 3 minutes, and it's been pretty effective. We've had actually – it's interesting because one of your guests on the show listened to it, and then they immediately want to connect with one of your other guests because they heard the Cloudcast 180.
Yeah, and that's the ABC Youth Foundation. And, certainly there was...
and Emilio Norris, correctly.
And Emilio Norris, exactly. And it was Archie Moore Jr., the son of the fabled boxer, and happened to hear the commercial. And that's just such a perfect example of how powerful, sonic branding is, and you hear this aspect of it. When we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit more about, Cloudcast 180. How do people get in touch with you, Charles, if they want to be part of this? And then really hit it hard on CauseCast. As you know, our passion at the Union Tribune has been, as we should, any iconic newspaper. You grew up in New York with the New York Times, and they certainly led the way on this as being engaged in the community. And we want to talk a little bit about how we can do that. And then some of the robust new programs you have, Solving Big Challenges, XY, and Telehealth, and then where you see the business going in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years down the road. And it's pretty exciting when we return with Charles Parisi. He is the founder and CEO of Cloudcast Media. I'm Drew Schlossberg of the San Diego Union Tribune, and you're listening to another episode of the Community Spotlight Show here on Cloudcast Media Radio. We are brought to you by Retirement Strategies Group. Retirement made simple.
Cloudcast 180. Powerful people, powerful stories, 180 seconds.
Welcome to Cloudcast 180. We're here live with Karen Terra, and we've got 3 minutes. Karen, welcome to Cloudcast 180, CEO of Emilio Norris Foundation. Karen, let's get right into it. Can you tell our audience all about the Norris family and how ENF started?
Well, it started with a little boy, Emilio Norris, who was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 3 and sadly passed away shortly before his 6th birthday. And in the time that he was sick and battling his disease in the hospital, his parents, Diane and Richard, noticed that there were families who were not able to get to their cancer treatments because they didn't have a car, or the primary parent who worked took the car to work, so they didn't have access to transportation. So they wanted to do something about it, and they started the Emilio Norris Foundation 15 years ago.
So after 15 years, they turned this tremendous loss into a tremendous amount of love for young people here in San Diego suffering from cancer. So just out of curiosity, how many kids actually miss their cancer treatments due to transportation issues?
Over 3,000 children in Southern California miss their cancer treatments because of lack of transportation. In the last 15 years, since we've been providing Ride with Emilio, we have eliminated that problem. Children are no longer missing their cancer treatments in San Diego and Orange County because of lack of transportation.
You've eliminated the problem. That's the goal of every nonprofit organization. That's incredible.
Yes, we serve every child who needs a ride to their cancer treatment. We serve them. We are able to say with confidence that there is no child in San Diego County who is missing his cancer treatment.
Now, you have something really special coming up, I understand. 1 million miles you've driven.
Yes, that will happen early next year in February. We're really excited about that. That's pretty significant. So in the 15 years that we've been in operation, we will have traveled 1 million miles driving children to and from their chemo treatments, their cancer treatments, whatever they need for us to ensure that they will get to their treatments on time every time.
And that's an incredible accomplishment. How do folks get involved with ENF? And then tell us what's next.
Well, they can come to our website at enfhope.org and find all the information about all of our programs there. And as we mentioned, in February, we're going to be launching our 1 millionth mile campaign. And it's going to be a month-long campaign in March. And